Hello and welcome to the NICU Space podcast by Miracle Moon. I'm Dr. Frankie Harrison, a clinical psychologist and NICU parent myself. Through my work as a psychologist and through my own experience of having a baby in neonatal care, I know that the NICU journey can leave a huge emotional impact on parents and families. This podcast is a space where we talk honestly about that experience. We will be exploring the emotional impact of neonatal care, the anxiety, the guilt, the grief, the questions about bonding and identity, the parts of the experience that so many parents carry long after leaving the hospital. Across the series, I'll be speaking with other NICU parents at different stages of their journey, as well as professionals working in the field. We want you to feel seen, understood, and less alone in what you've been through. So whether you are currently sitting beside an incubator, recently home from NICU, years down the line still making sense of it all, or someone supporting a NICU family, you are very welcome here. What you have been through matters, and you do not have to carry it on your own. Before we begin, just a quick note that this podcast is for information and support, but it is not a substitute for individual medical or psychological care. Now, let's get into today's episode. Hello and welcome to the NICU Space podcast. I'm Dr. Frankie Harrison, and today we are joined by Danielle, known on Instagram as Survival Mode, which is a little bit of a mouthful to say, but I do love that name. Danielle has joined us today to tell us her story. So I followed her since she was in NICU, and I've watched her open up and share vulnerably about every stage of the journey. So Danielle has Kingston, who's now 6, and then twins, Livy and Varna. And we talk about Danielle's fertility struggles, being pregnant with triplets, experiencing vanishing twin syndrome, which is something that I also experienced, and then having her twin girls during COVID 4 years ago. We speak about the impact of the experience on Danielle and her family, including how it resulted in her now being a single parent and how she copes with 3 young children solo, whilst also navigating type 1 diabetes for one of her twins. So have a listen. Let me know your thoughts about today's episode, and please reach out to Danielle if you would like to connect. Let's go. Hello, Danielle. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm okay. I'm good, thank you.
Good. I'm so glad that you have joined us today, because I've been following along your story kind of since you've been within neonatal with your twins. And I wanted to talk to you today. This month is kind of stress awareness. And I guess I was just saying to you beforehand, I want to talk about the kind of reality of being in the NICU. We'll come on to your story in a minute, but I guess the part of being a single mom and having 3 young kids and dealing with everything that you have done through neonatal care and medical issues and all of that in the way that you have. And I think that you just talk really openly and rawly about your experience. So I'm really excited to talk to you.
Thank you. I'm excited to speak to you too. I've been following you since I think I first followed you when I was literally in the NICU. So This was like my first entry into kind of realizing that it was quite healing to express myself and talk about my experiences. So I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
That's okay. So do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit about you before we get into the NICU story.
Yeah, well, I don't know who I am really other than a mum. So I'm Danielle. I'm 40. I'm almost 41. I'm a mum of 3. I have twins. They've just turned 4, and a son who's just under 2 years older. So he's just turned 6 as well. About me, yes, I'm a mum. That is pretty much it. I'm just trying to just live my life, be a good mum, and I feel like I'm still firefighting, honestly. But I'm just trying to get everything together and just give my children the best life. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. So, I mean, I think it's really hard, isn't it? Because I think you get to this point and you're like, I just am. That's just who I am. I'm mum. That's so all encompassing. So it's, it's not like one of those icebreaker questions where it's like, tell me something interesting about you. You're like, there's nothing. I feel like I'm mumming. Right.
I don't know what else to say.
Completely. So tell us a little bit about the kind of journey into parenthood for you, what that's been like.
Oh, so that wasn't easy. Like, I've always wanted to be a mum. That was my ambition in life. Some people want to be doctors and lawyers, but I knew I wanted to be a mum. And I had a great life. I was a bit of a party girl and I traveled, but I had a deep longing for like family. So I eventually met the children's father when I was just about turning 30. I was in a complete state of panic. I thought I was ancient. And we decided pretty quickly that we wanted to try for a family, and it just didn't happen. So that was the beginning of our story. We tried for over 2 years and just, it was grueling, and there was lots of medical appointments, and there was nothing. It was unexplained infertility, actually, which was really frustrating. So before I finally did get pregnant with acupuncture and Reiki and all these other modalities, I kind of like completely changed my life in terms of like health and wellness, and kind of went into like healthy eating and exercise and just doing what I could to try and get my body prepared to have a baby. So that was the beginning.
Oh, wow. It's a long time, isn't it? Do you feel like you were supported within that period of time, kind of professionally, medically, or do you feel like it was stuff that you ended up kind of doing to be able to support yourself?
I feel like people were so lovely about it, but unless you've been through infertility, or I think it's one of those things, it's really hard to get. And it was it was all consuming. Like I didn't think about anything else. I cried. It was the most difficult period of my life. So I feel like my friends were lovely. I didn't have any like professional support, but everybody was kind of like, it's going to happen, you've got time. But when you're in that situation, it doesn't feel that way. It was, I've never been so scared in my life, to be honest, because I knew I wanted it more than anything. And the prospect of it not happening for me was just like a living nightmare. So it was quite a difficult couple of years. And sadly, during that time, as much as Kev and I, like the kid's dad, it definitely impacted our relationship too. It took the fun out of it, and the romance, and all the things that should be a normal and exciting part of starting a family.
I guess it moves into that routine that like it needs to happen now, like that kind of waiting, that disappointment, and then just that cycle like happening every month.
Literally every month, you have a positive period after your period. You're like, yay, okay, we get to start again. And then you ovulate, and I'd literally be like positive and like praying and anxious for a week. And then the week building up to your period is just a nightmare. And you have symptoms, you don't even know if they're real anymore. I stopped trusting my body, I can't explain. It was I've never been so like confused and stressed in my life. And then the disappointment every single time when it wasn't the case. It was just, it was a lot.
Yeah, so much. So then you became pregnant with Kingston.
Yay.
Yeah. And what happened with that?
So I finally got my positive pregnancy test, and I would like to say it was great, but I was so anxious. I literally presented at the early pregnancy. To be fair, I did have some early bleeding, and I had a subchorionic hematoma. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So it was not without complication, but I was just a shaky, anxious mess. I tried to be excited, but I just couldn't relax. So I was like, yay, I'm pregnant. But then it went into a new phase of, am I going to keep this pregnancy? And just pure fear. But it did subside as the pregnancy progressed, thankfully. And once I started to kind of feel movement, that was really, really reassuring. And then I did start to enjoy it.
Okay. All right. And then you carried Kingston to term? No neonatal
More than term,
Okay.
He stayed with me to like 41 and 6. So I was very pregnant with Kingston, and it was a healthy pregnancy. I felt great. I enjoyed it, actually. I didn't feel poorly. I was tired. I wasn't sick. I was absolutely fine. The only frustration was I didn't find out the sex. So I was just really impatient. That was my biggest drama. My birth with him wasn't great. It was, I had failure to progress. And I feel like there was like, the hospital, I don't know, the hospital probably didn't act fast enough. I probably should have been taken in sooner, but it worked out absolutely fine. I gave birth via C-section in the end. It was an emergency, but he was healthy and I was fine.
Okay. Okay, all right. It's that language though, isn't it? That failure to progress. I had that with my second, and I was just like, it's just the language around it as well, which kind of sticks with you a little bit, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
So tell me about the next part then. So then you became pregnant again.
Yeah. So we had Kingston, everything was great. We had a pandemic, but that was fine. And I knew I genuinely felt by this point, I'm 30. How old am I? I'm like 36, maybe. And I do still feel that I'm like behind. All my friends have kind of had their kids, and I wanted to have another one ASAP. To be honest, I probably would have tried immediately, but because of the C-section, they advise you to wait a year. So as soon as the year was up, it was like, let's go.
Okay.
And it was it was quick. And I knew I was pregnant with the twin before I even took a test. I just felt different. Like I just felt something. I wouldn't say symptoms, but I just thought it was like my center of gravity had changed. Like something, it was a profound difference. I woke up one morning and I thought, I feel different. And I felt slightly like I was floating. That was the beginning of morning sickness. Like late and then, but I didn't know, but I felt like I was on a boat. And I thought, I think I might be pregnant. And then I went to a friend's house and their nan had cooked like curry chicken. And I was like, she's quite elderly. And I was like, I think she needs to take the bins out. And my friend was like, oh, you're pregnant because it smells delicious. And I was like, oh my God. So I took a pregnancy test early and it was strong. And me and my friend were joking about the fact it was my best friend. I'd only spoken to her about it. And she was like, what if it's twins? And I was like, just don't, because I can't even no thanks. But it turned out to be twins, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So, and so I bled the twin pregnancy. That was complicated as well. I bled from early.
Okay.
So I went to the early pregnancy unit, and actually in the first I was probably about 5 weeks, not even 5 weeks and something. And I went in and they were like, well, great news, you are pregnant and there's 2 sacs. I was like, oh. And I remember just shaking. And then they were like, we're just going to go quiet for a little while. And then, please don't worry. And I could see there was no heartbeat or anything. It was really early.
Right.
And then they kind of stopped and looked at me and they said, oh, so you've got, you're pregnant still. You've got 2 sacs here. And if you look in this one, there's 2 yolks. Or I don't know if that was the language they used. And like straight away, I was like, no. So, and Kevin was like, what does that mean? And I was like, there's triplets. So that was the beginning. So it was like such a mixed emotion because I was mortified, actually, to be completely honest. But I was also so happy to still be pregnant because it was quite a bad bleed, to be honest. Yeah. So I was relieved and I was like scared and I was shocked. And to be honest, I laughed a lot. I think I was in shock. I laughed for a good 24 hours, just hysterically on and off. Yeah. Just thinking, this has got to be a joke.
Yeah, completely. Like so surreal, especially given the start in it all to then have that. Like, how did you get your head around that?
I don't know if I did, to be honest. No. It got quite negative pretty quickly. And just to go back, I did actually want twins when I was pregnant with Kingston. I was like, let me have twins, please. Let me have twins. Like, it was a bit of a prayer because I was thinking if I have twins, I can catch up. I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, 1 pregnancy, 2 children, hopefully a girl and a boy. Bam. And I can live happily ever after. But the week I brought Kingston home, in fact, the day, within 48 hours of bringing Kingston home, I remember saying, could you imagine if we had twins? And laughing about it and just being like, no, hindsight and knowledge is power. I was just like, no, that would be so hard. So obviously, by the time I'm now pregnant with triplets, I know what motherhood is like to an extent with 1. And I'm like, how is this even manageable? Like, how is this going to work? But sadly, I was brought down to earth pretty quickly because I had a phone call about they'd give me a scan at 7 weeks. And to be honest, they said to me, it's probably not going to stick. It's highly we don't expect you to have 3 heartbeats at your next scan. And I was like, oh, okay. And they said, they were like, it's very unusual. It's a very early scan. So there's lots of people that become pregnant and then they don't. They would never know that it was a multiple pregnancy. And kind of threw in there really flippantly and had it. And if it is, that we can look into things like a selective reduction. And I'd never heard of that before. So obviously after the phone call, it's when you choose to reduce your pregnancy. And I didn't even know that was an option and that was a thing. So I was like, wow. And personally, like, it wasn't something I would have considered, but it was kind of sold to me in terms of like a safety kind of thing. Like, you know, if you want the pregnancy to progress, it's probably safe. Like, but we'll talk about that later. So to be honest, that ruined everything, because I was like, I was scared and I was pregnant, but I was like, oh my God, what does that mean? Am I not going to have all of these babies, or am I going to lose them all? Or am I going to have to choose to lose a baby? Like, I kind of did too much Googling and learned a little bit about it. And I was just like, it just put me in a bad place, to be honest.
No,
That was
makes
really
sense.
hard.
Yeah. So did you have to go down that route?
No. And it's funny, and I feel it's an awful thing to talk about, and I do talk about it with my friends, and I do feel a lot of guilt around this, but I kind of started to think, well, maybe I'll be lucky and the baby won't develop a heartbeat, and then I won't have to make a decision. And kind of like in my mind at this point, I did feel attached, but there was a detachment in that. There's no heartbeat, so let's just see what happens. So I'm remembering this, by the way, as I'm speaking to you, so bear with me. And then I went for another scan, and there were 3 heartbeats. And I just remember being like, oh no, like kind of like, oh God, it kind of made it real. And then I had a bleed, another 2. No one talked about selective reduction at that scan. It was just kind of like, congratulations. And I was a bit like, oh, yes, I hope so. And then I was like getting my head around that. And then I started to have a bad bleed again. So I've represented. And that's when I was told that one of the heartbeats had ceased. The growth, it wasn't a heartbeat. The growth had stopped literally 24 hours, probably within my last scan. Wow. And by this point, I'm like 10 weeks pregnant. So this probably happened 2 weeks prior. And to be honest, I thought I would be relieved, but I was absolutely just devastated, to be honest. I really, I thought I'd be like, oh, thank God. And it's such a horrible thing to say, because we're talking about pregnancy and babies, but it was so early on and there was so much going on. But I just was floored, to be honest.
Yeah, completely. Like, so much to get your head around within those weeks, to hear 3, and then to have all of those different conversations, and then to experience that like, so you kind of said you didn't feel like you got your head around that. Did it just feel like you were just getting through? Like, how did you feel within that?
It just, I can't explain it. I felt so ill with this pregnancy. So I was physically, I've never felt so sick in my life. And I was scared of that potential decision, and I was hoping, obviously, not to make it. But I was still, I really thought, like, in my mind, I was like, I don't want to do it. But then obviously you have that voice saying, but you don't want to lose all of your babies. And to be honest, it was the worst situation ever. So like I said, I thought I'd be relieved. I remember my mum's partner saying to me, you will never recover if you have to have this reduction. Like, and nobody told me not to do it, but in my heart, I knew that I wouldn't be able to do it. So like I said, it was like, I should have been relieved. Oh, thank God it's out of my hands. And there was some of that, of course, but there was also just pure devastation of loss. And then a lot of guilt surrounding that, because it wasn't a normal situation where I still had 2 babies. So there was relief, and then there was also guilt, because I'm like, relieved slightly that this has happened, but also so sad. It was just, it's just the worst feeling. It was so strange.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Completely. And there's no right way to feel about that. Like, it's so complicated, and like so many different factors. And you probably did feel all of it at once. But I guess we do that bit of going, if I feel a certain way, then we judge ourselves for feeling that certain way, don't we? Regardless of what it is, right? So it's like, if you felt relief, it was like, well, maybe I wanted that, but then I feel bad that I feel that. So it's all so complicated with all of those feelings, right? I think I've shared on the podcast as well that I had in my first pregnancy, it started off with twins, but I went in with a bleed
early, and similar to you, it was like most people wouldn't know that it was maybe a multiple pregnancy, that I'd lost one in that way, but then there was another one there. So completely get that kind of like, I don't really know how to feel within this type feeling. It's not straightforward, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then go into like mama bear mode where you're like, well, are the other two safe? You know, this is going to happen? I've still got two babies to kind of grow and protect. And so grateful for that, but also fearful. And I did speak to a doctor and they said it was vanishing twin syndrome. I'm not sure if you were told the same. Yeah. So that it probably was, the pregnancy was probably likely to continue to progress with the remaining two. Okay. But it was just like, it was a lot. But after that, I kind of like, to be honest, I didn't dwell on it too much. I feel like that come back once they were born, actually. And I focused on the pregnancy and the remaining babies. And I did think about it, but I detached and kind of was like, right, I've still got two babies. I need to keep these babies. I need to like have a healthy pregnancy.
Yeah, I felt exactly the same with that. I think, your brain just kind of goes into a different kind of mode, doesn't it, with that? So then how was the rest of the pregnancy with the twins?
It was absolutely fine. I was really lucky, actually. It was uneventful. So I did bleed on and off. I seemed to be a bleeder in my pregnancies. But again, once I got to like 20 weeks and I did learn the gender with the girls and I felt them move. They always said to me, can you feel them both moving? I never could tell the difference, honestly, personally. But I felt well. After 16 weeks, I stopped feeling poorly. I felt fine. Yeah, I was obviously tired and having a toddler at home, high energy. But it was great. It was uneventful. I went for my regular appointments, which were every 2 weeks.
Wow.
And it was fine.
So did they talk to you about any kind of risk of neonatal care, of prematurity with twins? Was there any discussion around that?
It was mentioned very vaguely about twins being premature and that they could come early. So I was aware, and we were still in the COVID era. Yeah. And I had heard that like there was lots of stuff talked about with like pregnancy and COVID, and there was loads of things going around, and we didn't really know anything at that point because COVID was new. Well, in terms of 19. So I had a fear of catching COVID and then obviously consequently going into labour. So I was a little bit obsessed with that and masked up and antisocial. And that was my thing, you know, very like into like, stay away from me. I'm pregnant and I've got twins. But it wasn't anything that was spoken to me about. And it was just a background fear. And I'd never even heard of like neonatal until probably early, just before I got pregnant with the twins. I had a friend and and this is probably where my fear came from. She'd had a baby and tested COVID positive, and they didn't let her see her baby for 10 days. So she was posting every day, like updates and pictures. She never stepped foot in that hospital for 10 days. And I was in pieces, like crying for her, just as I was a mum, just saying, how was this possible? Like, how could they not let her see her baby? I didn't even really understand what the NICU was or why her baby was there, but I knew her baby was in hospital and she wasn't. And that traumatized me, to be honest, even just living it through her. I just thought that was where my fear came from. So I was like, I can't get COVID in case I'm like due to have a baby and this could happen. But that was that. But apart from that, it was just it was a very big fear in my mind. It was, to be honest, it was probably a borderline obsession. It was what kind of scared me. I didn't think about like anything. I remember my friend saying to me, she was pregnant at the same time, my best friend. She goes, do you worry that, you know, the twins, do you worry about the birth or like anything going wrong? And I was like, no, my only fear is not being able to see them. And I was like, I just felt instinctively like the twins were strong, but I just couldn't even fathom that happening to me.
Okay.
Which obviously
did. Well, totally. So tell me a little bit about that bit, if it feels okay.
So everything was absolutely fine. And then one day I literally was hanging up. I spoke to the hospital and they said C-section. And they were like, we're going to send you an email and give you a date. And I was like, okay. And they were like, you'll get it in the next few days. And I remember they like sent the email and it said they sent me the date immediately after the phone call. And it said something like the 14th of March. And I was like, I don't really like that date. Like, so silly. But I was like, 14th. I'm not sure how I feel about 14. But anyway, I was like, okay, whatever. Yeah. And I was hanging, I thought, I better put the wash on. He said, get your hospital bag ready. You need to get it. Is it ready? And I said, no. And he said, you need to get it ready. You're carrying twins. Get it ready now. And I'm 33 weeks at this point. And then I was like, okay. So I had all the new clothes. I took the labels off. I put them in the wash. I'm hanging them out. And I felt wet all of a sudden. And I thought, nah. And I was like, okay. And then I went and checked, and my underwear was wet, but it wasn't soaked. It hadn't gone through to my leggings, but my underwear was wet. So I kind of changed and washed and was like, okay. And that was the end of that. I thought that was strange. And then I took my son out for a walk, and we went in to get a coffee and get him a snack. And it happened again, but this time it was a little bit more. And I thought, am I weeing myself? I thought it was such a strange feeling. So I called my friend, and she said, call the hospital. Oh, and sorry, by the way, I had, where are we at? I'd had COVID previously, but now I'm out and about, and I have had my lateral test. So I'm going back to work, by the way, literally in a couple, tomorrow, I think it was. So I called the hospital, and I had told the hospital about the COVID. So, which thankfully is amazing that will make sense after. Yeah. So I called the hospital, and they said, oh, so what's it like? And I was just like, I don't know, I've just become wet. I don't know if it's wee. I really don't know. It's a strange feeling. So they said, come in. So I was like, okay. So I went in, and as I took the tube, I felt absolutely fine. I went by myself, and and Kevin was still at home, actually. He was still shielding because he was positive after me. So I went in by myself, and they made me wait in a room because obviously I was still within that 10 days, and they came and got me, and they said, put on a sanitary towel and then come in. But as I was getting off the tube, I had a massive gush now, and I was like, whoa. So I was like, oh no, it's happening. So I went into the hospital, and while I was in this room, which was basically a toilet, downstairs waiting for them to come and bring me up to the ward. And I was uncomfortable. I was wet. And the sanitary, I was soaking. It was so I was just like, I took it off. I cleaned myself up. So when I went up to the hospital, they entered the room. They said, have you got the sanitary towel? And I said, oh no. I said, I put it in the bin downstairs. I said, it was soaked. I didn't think I would need any evidence of what's happened. And they were like, okay, well, we'll just wait. So they ran, they did, I don't know what they were doing. They did some tests. They had to look, and nothing happened. No more water came. I was there all day, 6-7 hours laying there. And then they said, oh, we think it's probably discharge. And I was like, discharge? I was like, I said I was soaked. Yeah. So then I wasn't sure. And I was strong and advocating for myself because of what I kind of, with Kingston, I really felt like I could have pushed more with him. So I was like, I'm not happy. I want to speak to someone else. So they scanned me, and everything looked great. And they tested the depth of the water. I forgot what the medical term was, but it looked like there was loads of water in the sacks. And they sent me home, and I remember them saying to me, are you happy now? And I was like, no, I'm not. I said, I'm not happy, but what can I do? I have to trust you guys. You're the professionals. And I went home, and everything was fine. And it got to bedtime, and I thought, okay, maybe I was wrong. Nothing had happened. And then I went to sleep, and then I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was a bit wired, and I went to the toilet, and I was wet. I was leaking. And I remember thinking, okay, am I weeing myself now? Is my bladder pooped?
Yeah,
is it this what's happening? But then afterwards, so I stopped drinking water because I thought maybe it is. But then I needed to go to the toilet, and I realized that it wasn't the same. Right. And I was really dehydrated. I could tell by my urine. So I was supposed to go back to work that morning. So I remember I got ready, I got dressed. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I woke Kevin up, and I said, I'm going to work, but I'm just popping to the hospital before I go just to check. I went into hospital, and that was that. I never left. I obviously got in, and they were like, yeah, it's fluid. Oh, what was it called again? It's the, oh, I'm sorry, I've forgotten the medical term for the fluid from the sacs. But yeah, the membrane had ruptured on twin A. Yeah, so it hadn't been discharged or it had done that. So they admitted me.
Was that something that they had missed, or what?
They 100% missed it because it had been happening. I think it was 3 days altogether by the time I'm back in there. So they definitely missed it. And I had said that they said they'd taken a swab test, but then afterwards there was no evidence of it on the system. It had never come back.
Did you know that the NICU space is more than just this podcast? We also run an online community created specifically for NICU parents, whether your baby is currently in neonatal care or your NICU experience happened months or even years ago. Inside the community, you'll find specialist guidance from professionals who understand NICU, resources and coping tools to help with the emotional impact, and most importantly, connection with other parents who really get it. For many parents, it becomes a place where they can finally talk about their NICU experience with people who understand without needing an explanation. If this sounds like something that would support you, you can find out more information in the show notes. Let's get back to the episode.
So I was quite irritated about that, but there was nothing we could do. They were like, you're going to have to stay in. We're going to give you an injection, a steroid injection. We have to admit you. We're going to put you on antibiotics for any risk of infection for the babies. And I said, hopefully you can keep the babies in. And I said, how long for? And they said, for as long as possible. And I said, what's the likelihood? And she went, honestly, and she held my hand and she said, it's very unlikely. You're probably going to labour very quickly with twins. She said, but you never know. And I was like, okay. So they put me in isolation because I'm still within the 10 days. So even though I'm negative on my lateral flow, they did a PCR and it was positive. So they're like, we have to put you in isolation, unfortunately. And they put me in a room by myself and I wasn't allowed visitors. And they were like, you're going to be here until day 10. And if you don't labour, then your son and your partner will be able to come and see you. So I was a bit like, oh. So, yeah. So then I was like, I'm going to keep these twins in. And that was like my next focus. So, yeah.
And did you?
No. So that was Friday. So I went in at 5 a.m. So all day Friday was uneventful. I was just in the hospital. I was watching TV. I was bored. Nothing was going on. My best friend brought me a bag because obviously Kevin couldn't because he was at home kind of like isolating. My best friend brought me a bag of essentials and she wasn't allowed to see me. She just left them outside the door. I could see her. I remember crying through the glass window, just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. But I was like, I was like positive. I'm going to keep these twins and it's going to be fine. And then at 1 o'clock in the morning, I just woke up and I was so starving. I've never felt like hungry like that in my life. And the nurse came in and I rang the bell and I said, I'm so sorry, but do you mind have you got any food? I'm starving. And she was like, no problem. And she was like, how do you feel? And I said, fine. And she was like, I'm going to just do a check and just hook you up. So no, before she did that, actually, I went to the toilet and there was like a pink show, like a heavy pink show. So when she came back, she didn't come back with a toast yet. I rang the bell again. She came back and I said, I'm sorry, I've had a bleed. And she said, can I have a look? And she goes, oh, that's the show. So she's hooked me up and she said, I've been on the machine before and it kind of like detects if you're in labour, it goes up and down and it was going up to the max. And she said to me, are you in pain? And I was like, no. And she was so lovely. And she was like, are you sure? And I was like, no. And she's like, I can't let you eat actually because you might be in labour. And I was like, no, I'm fine. And she went and she came back and the machine was going off and then she came back and it was crazy because she said to me, you can't if this is happening, Danielle. And she said, like, you can't stop it. It's going to happen and you're going to be fine and the babies are going to be fine. And she was like, are you in pain? And I was like, maybe. And like, I wasn't even sure, but it was almost like the power of the mind. It was like I was in denial. And the moment I was like, okay, maybe, I was in agony. I literally went from 0 to 100. Wow, really? And I was like, I was in labour. It was so bad. And it was such a shock because I was like, I promise. I feel I didn't even believe you could lie to yourself like that. But I hadn't felt a thing until that moment where she said to me, like, look, this is going to happen. It's happening. I can see it's happening. And then all of a sudden it was like, all go. And it was like, whoa.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I was in labour wards.
Do you feel like it was, do you feel like your brain almost was doing that bit of like, I have to keep them in. So I can't even think about the idea of them kind of arriving.
Exactly.
Like
I didn't, I needed them. Obviously I was like thinking I'm going to have to do this alone. They're early. I'm not going to be able to see them. I had to, my 10 days, I think ended on the Monday or something like that. It's Saturday and hours.
Okay.
So I think I literally was just like, no, I'm not going to, I think I must have woken up and known I was in pain, but I promise I didn't know. Like I'm still fascinated with it to this day because I never felt a thing until I realised that it had to happen. I don't know which one came first, but I was in full-blown labour and they checked and I dilated to 6 already.
Okay. Oh, wow. Goodness
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
you're already like properly within it. So then it progressed at that point. And how were they and how were you within that?
Yeah, so after that we went down to labour ward pretty quickly, but it still took ages, to be honest. So I was on the gas and air, and I just remember saying, can Kevin come? Can Kevin come? Because I was going to have a C-section and they were going to obviously have to prepare it, like COVID proof it. So it was just like, please, I'm like on my own, like literally on my own in agony and just like in and out of it. And but time in my mind went really quickly, but it was probably quite a few hours because I didn't have the babies until 9 o'clock in the morning. Right. Kevin arrived at 8. So after lots of back and forth, the nurse, there was like handover in between. There was so much going on. I was quite sick. But then eventually Kevin arrived, and then they wheeled me down like to theatre as soon as they could. And that was all just like pretty straightforward. I don't know. I feel like they did a spinal tap, excuse me. And like that was a bit scary because I was in so much pain and had to keep still and I was quite exhausted. But that all went pretty good. I don't remember having any thoughts or feelings about that. And I was just hoping that I was just praying that they were going to breathe. Because in my mind, if they breathed on their own, everything would be fine. Okay. And they would come up to me and they would be able to come up on the ward with me. So nobody had a discussion about NICU and if they did, I don't remember because I was in a lot of pain. I wasn't medicated. I was just on the gas and air, but it does make you out of it. But for me, it was just like, please let them breathe. Please let them breathe. So Varna came out first and straight away cried. And then Livy, like it says 2 minutes, it was 2 minutes later and she was like floppy. And I was just like, oh my God. And I remember, I was thinking I've got it actually on a live photograph. You can hear me. And she's just not responding, but it's literally seconds because on the next photo, she cries. And I'm like, oh my God, thank God, thank God.
Wow.
She's tiny compared to her sister. I remember thinking she was like really slit. She was skinny. She didn't have any fat. And I thought, oh, bless her. But in my mind, it was she was fine. So they didn't bring Livy over to me. They brought twin A, Varna, to me. And I had a look at her and I was like, hi, I'm your mum. And then they took her back quite quickly. And then somebody came over to me and said something about Livy's oxygen was not great and they were going to have to take her pretty quickly. And I was like, okay. And that was that. It was just a whirlwind. They were gone within 10 minutes, I would say. Like it was really quick. Both were just gone, yeah. Okay. And then they said, they obviously had to patch me up or do whatever. That I think I hemorrhaged. We were in there for a while, but I was fine. And then they said, we're going to take you back to labour ward and Kevin will have to go now. He can't stay. And then so basically off I went to labour ward. He went home and I was a bit just like laying there, just kind of like, I don't even really remember how long I was on labour ward, but I was all right at this stage. It was only like between labour ward and going back up to the original room I was in that I was told that the babies were in the NICU and that I wouldn't be able to see them until Monday. And I don't even remember I can't tell you what my response was. I don't actually remember. I don't remember getting from the C-section to the labour ward back to my room. I don't remember that at all.
So at this point, you said that it was Saturday.
Yeah.
Right. So it was waiting until the Monday.
Monday.
Do you remember the Saturday, the Sunday at all? Or
I knew. I was fine. If fine is a thing, I was super focused. So I was like, I could give them colostrum, they said. So I spent that whole period just squeezing colostrum out of my breast and watching reality TV shows. It sounds crazy, but I was just like watching the clock and I was literally just obsessed. And there was a charity called Angel Wings, if I'm correct. And Varna, twin A, happened to have a camera on her bed. So I had that on live. So I could just see her sleeping, but they didn't have one for Livy because they only had a certain amount. So Livy was a bit more poorly. She was in ICU and she was on oxygen, but I couldn't see her. But the midwife went and took a few photos from me and brought them back. And I would literally ring the bell, give them the colostrum, and I even saw them give it to Nirvana live on the camera. So that was nice. Wow. And I was just like Monday. And that was it. I wasn't crying. I wasn't upset. I missed my son a lot. Yeah. I was never been away from him, not even for a night. So it was really weird. But I was literally just super, just like focused. Couldn't think about anything else but Monday.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. And then when you met them, what was that experience like?
I ran down 3 flights of stairs 2 days after a C-section, and then I couldn't get there quicker. I was so excited.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was lovely. Livy had gone into, they were both in high dependency, but yeah, and they were beside each other, and yeah, it was lovely. It was so good to see them. It was really nice. I was just so happy. It was Valentine's Day. I was like, yay. And yeah, it was lovely. And then Kevin came soon after. So I remember, it was all jaded, but I remember I saw them and I held Varna, and then Kevin came really quickly and he held Livy, and that was it. But there was I feel like it was cut short. I'm not sure. I couldn't honestly tell you the reason, but we didn't stay the whole day. I'm not sure why. I think we went home, weirdly. I think I was discharged. I don't remember the details, but obviously I was back the following day, and then I feel like that was when NICU life began.
Yeah, completely. I'm aware that there's so much more that I want to talk to you about, and we've spoken for a long time already, and I just wonder whether you feel okay with kind of talking a little bit about how you feel like the impact of neonatal care, of all of that experience, what that had on you. How do you feel like it impacted you?
I feel like it's like an alien, like it's the most alien feeling, like not being beside your babies. And obviously I had a baby, so I knew what it was like to hold your baby post-birth. So for me, it just felt like the most uncomfortable torture, like a silent torture. Like I wanted to crawl out of my own body. It it made me feel also really determined. I was very like, I'm going to do whatever I can to be there for these girls. And almost, I can't explain it, but make it up to them. I definitely felt like a sense of like guilt, maybe, or like it just felt wrong. Like it just didn't feel right. And I just wanted to do what I could to make it feel okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No, and I think that's really normal. I think that there's this kind of making up feeling that so many of us have, of like wanting to just want to make it okay for them,
yeah.
don't you, in whatever way that you possibly can do, whether that's guilt or whatever you want to kind of call it. But I get that kind of feeling. So you had that kind of that guilt feeling. It like you had that kind of, the way that you put it, I don't actually think that there are words for that separation. I think that it's visceral. It's like, you know, it's just not right, and that's not big enough a word for what it is, you know.
Exactly. That's exactly. It just didn't feel right, and because they were twins, I couldn't hold them at the same time. So it was they were on opposite sides of the room eventually.
Yeah.
So it all just felt like I couldn't be there enough. I couldn't do enough. Livy was in an incubator. So, you know, I felt like I held her sister more. It just, everything just didn't feel right. But there are no words to describe it, to be honest.
No,
it just felt wrong.
Completely. And you can't split yourself in 3 different ways to be able to give all your kids everything that you would want to give them. So it must just feel like you're not able to do what you want to do for each kid enough.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah. And you feel like they're not your own as well, because in the beginning, I didn't in the end, but you know, the nurses are there. You don't know what your place is. Do I do this? And I've got pretty assertive pretty quickly and did the changes and the temperatures and the nappy changes. But in the beginning, I kind of felt like a spare part with my own children. I was like, I don't know where to sit. Like, what side of the room do I choose? I've got a baby over there. And do I let you do it? What do I say? What is that? Are you like, one day they gave them formula. I'm like, why are you doing that? Because I've got breast milk, little things like that. But on day 7, I had a bit of a breakdown and finally cried for like 8 hours nonstop. And then called the hospital and basically was like, because there was a bed beside Nirvana, but there was a baby there, and they didn't want to upset mum, of course, because she was already there. But I was like, come on, can you not just can I not ask her myself then? I was trying to be sympathetic to her, but I'm like, seriously, you just have to move across. She was absolutely fine, but I just didn't want to upset her. I didn't want to be a difficult patient, you know, so there was all of that to navigate as well.
Yeah, completely. And then when we were talking earlier, you said that the hospital was good in not discharging the twins separately?
Yeah. So what was great about where I was at is that not only they said from the beginning they would never separate the twins. They'd done some twin studies and found that twins thrive better together. So as soon as Livy had regained her birth weight, which took absolutely ages, I think it took like 10 days, she was just in that incubator kicking all day. I really think she was protesting. She wanted to be by her sister because the moment they put her beside Varna, she stopped. They co-bedded together, and then Livy started to thrive. And I had that. It was so reassuring to know that because Varna had quite a good weight. She wasn't ready for discharge. She had bradycardia, so she was constantly setting the machines off. Whereas Livy was smaller but didn't have that. It was more of a weight issue. But once they were together, and that was so reassuring to know. I wasn't at my local hospital, so there was always the threat that I may be sent to my local hospital, and they didn't co-bed the twins. So that was a bit of a fear. But whilst we were there, I knew they'd be together.
Yeah, completely. So jumping forward a little bit, you speak on your Instagram now about being a single mum and kind of doing this experience on your own. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I feel like the NICU changed me a lot, and it's not just about like I'd like to think I was a loving mum before, but I don't know, it put a fire in me where I wanted to just be the best version of me all round, like the best mum, and obviously make sure the girls were able to thrive. And I think that was my focus and not my relationship. I don't think, honestly, looking back, I don't think maybe we had the strongest foundations, but I think that the NICU experience and how that impacted me, and it did impact him, but maybe not in the same way. And that definitely affected me. I think that was a huge disconnect, the initial disconnect for the relationship. And then when post NICU, you come home and you've got a 1-year-old and 2 newborns, it was it was written in the stars that it wasn't going to work. I think you need someone who is like, I needed someone to hold me and I'm broken. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to do that emotionally and physically. It was just grueling, and he wasn't able to do that either. So it was just a very difficult time. And, by the time the twins were 2, there was nothing left between us.
No. How do you cope with, stress, with juggling, with having all 3 kids and doing that kind of on your own? How do you cope?
I don't know if I do cope, honestly.
Fine.
Yeah, I am totally. Constant state of anxiety. But I have worked really hard. Like I do listen to like podcasts and self-care, and I have worked really hard to try and regulate myself. So I find we co-sleep to this day, but and so they usually wake up with me. But I find if I can just do little things, like if I can just quickly get up and jump in the shower, if I feel like if I've had that shower and woken up, that's a stress off my plate. So if something goes on or someone vomits or I don't know, they're fighting, I'm ready. So I can deal with you. I try to exercise and walk, and also I sleep. I literally go to sleep with the kids sometimes at 7:00 because I know that will make me a better mum in the morning. So I try. I don't really rest. I want to rest more, but there's always something to do. By the time I finish one meal, there's another meal due. There's 3 children. There's school, Ilmo's nursery. Recently, Varna's had the type 1 diagnosis. That is just that's another set of twins on its own.
Oh so gosh, it's quite relentless. Yeah, I feel like we could probably do another hour talking about that. Like that.
Let's not
I
go
know,
there.
And I'm aware that we've only got like a few minutes left, but I so wanted to talk to you about that. If people want to find out more about that type 1 diagnosis, it's something that you talk about on your Instagram, isn't it? About the impact that's had on you guys. Yeah.
At the moment, it is literally the impact. We're not even 3 months in, so I'm still learning and navigating that. So, but the only thing I can say is, as a NICU mum, it's been awful just even to be readmitted to hospital, to hear machines, to see sick kids. I think that was very traumatic for me. In terms of navigating the diabetes, it's very much like something I'm probably can only talk about how I feel, not how I'm managing, because I'm learning.
No,
I'm not there
completely.
yet.
No, completely.
Absolute chaos.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of parents do that bit of going like, you come out of the NICU and you do move into that kind of survival mode, just especially if you've got multiples, of being like, I just need to get on with it. I'm moving all the time, I'm doing what I can to be able to cope. But you have an event like having to go back into hospital or a diagnosis or something like that. And that is when you kind of go, oh my God, here's all that trauma that I like maybe haven't dealt with here in the beaks, or like, you know, I think that it brings it all back up to the surface.
Yeah, 100%. I can't tell you how I felt. I was back in that room by myself again. And like, but this time I've got my beautiful daughter who's poorly, and I was just like, oh my God, this is hell. I don't know what else to call it. Like hell. And there was all the uncertainty. It was just the same, but different, just a few years on. And you have the same thing, the gratitude, like, oh, she's here, she's safe. I can physically touch her and hold her. She's breathing. But then at the same point, it's that, why me? Why can't I have a normal experience? I want to fix it and I can't.
Yeah, completely. And I think that's what we want to do as a mum. Like that part of going like, what can I do? How can I help? All that kind of stuff, like that goes through your mind, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So if we were thinking about the people who are listening to this now, and if they're relating to your story, probably particularly to the part of like, feeling like you are stretched thin and you are juggling and like not really feeling like you're coping within it, it just feels in that firefighting mode. What would you say to another person who's kind of in that situation right now?
I don't know if I can advise anybody.
Does anyone give advice?
I could say, I see you, and I hope, like, I'm not great at doing this for myself, but I hope you're giving yourself grace. You're amazing. You're doing your best. It's not easy. And just take it, not even day by day, take it breath by breath, and just try and enjoy it. Like sometimes just leave the dishes, or be kind to yourself. You're doing a great job, and try and just say, what would I say to a friend in this situation? And then put it back onto yourself. I've started to do that a lot, because I think as mums, we're hard on ourselves anyway. And then I think the NICU experience just adds a whole nother level of like, I don't know, what's the word? Like determination, ambition. I don't know. There's like a hunger in.
Fire. Yeah, 100%.
It's like you're constantly trying to prove something and make it right. So, but you've already done that. So
I love that. Like I said, I could carry on talking to you for so much longer, but if people want to find out more about you, we'll put your information below in the show notes so that they can go and give you a follow and follow up with you if that feels okay, to ask any questions.
Oh, totally. My DMs are always open. And actually, I've never had a social media before I became a NICU mum. It was just other people's shared experiences that were so helpful to me when I was sitting in that NICU, like, doing skin to skin with nothing else to do. And it was reading stories and feeling seen that made me kind of think, oh, there's something in it. Like I've made friends with mums that have messaged me and said, I've had a similar experience, and I've made some of the best friends ever and had my motherhood journey with them. So I am so open, and love to hear from mums.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your time. And we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the NICU Space podcast by Miracle Moon. If this episode resonated with you, please know that support is available and you are always welcome in our community. If you found this episode helpful, one of the best ways to support the podcast is by sharing it, leaving a rating, or subscribing. It helps these conversations reach more NICU parents who really need them. You can also find us on Instagram and across social media at Miracle Moon UK, or explore more resources at miraclemoon.co.uk. Wherever you are in your NICU story, please remember this: you are not alone.